time out right away.
Let's go.
Costas, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. I'm great.
Good to see you. Good
Thank
to see
you.
you.
Glad to be back.
How was Christmas?
Awesome. Spent some time in Rome with my girlfriend. Some a long time, quality time with each other, exploring Rome and all its history. It was awesome. Couldn't ask for any better.
Yes. I saw that. Any favorite spot that you really liked? I've been to
Yeah.
Rome once, but yeah.
Yeah, tell me, how did you like it?
No, I liked everything as well, but I thought people were way friendlier than I thought. I thought there would be like this obnoxious, South European mentality, and then it was wonderful. Everybody was really, really nice. Like cab drivers were amazing.
Yeah, that's true. I was
Of
shocked
course,
about that, cab drivers.
yeah. When you go around, people were really helpful. So I don't know. Maybe it's bad if I say that I'm surprised or that I was surprised, but I liked it. And of course, like you said too, like the history and everything was quite cool. So, any favorite spot that you found?
Yeah, actually, so we lived close to nearby Colosseum. So the morning run was from our hotel down to Colosseum, around Colosseum, back up again. And there's a what do you call it, passway, right?
Yeah.
Towards Colosseum with a lot of ruins on each side. And you can't avoid feeling like a gladiator when you run towards Colosseum, like a gladiator going for the last battle. And of course, I had to put the gladiator soundtrack on as soon as I was running towards Colosseum. Yeah, but that should be the best, my favorite spot in Rome, Colosseum.
Nice. You get some free inspiration also from the experience.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what I'm doing right now, because I'm a professional athlete, boxer more specifically, it's more than the gladiators. I will call us fighters like more than the gladiators. So of course it make you feel some type of way when you know about the history and you know about like people. I wouldn't say, I mean, they fought to death, so we don't do that, and I'm very glad for that. But I mean, I can imagine.
Could.
Yeah,
you could
It
potentially.
happens.
Yeah.
But I couldn't avoid thinking like what they experienced just before they entered the what you call it, the Colosseum, right before the fight started. I think when you look at genetically and how the human body and mind works, I think we experience some kind of similar feelings, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So the fear you get, all the adrenaline you get, right, that I get right before a fight, I'm pretty sure they experience the same kind of emotions. So that's cool to see such an old place, but to feel some kind of connection to it, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, and the gladiators, I agree. And the gladiator games, of course, they took that away at some point. It was too barbaric, and now we have the modern parts left, right? So the MMA, I would say, is
the closest.
Yeah, as close as you can probably get to that, right? So it's interesting how there's a reason, I think, exactly like you're explaining, why people love the entertainment of this, and that there's something else that is not. I think we talked about this before, actually. That it's not. It's not just the violence that some people, of course, are going to look. They want to see people being beat up, but there's also a different element of what happens to a person when you're watching somebody that is in this situation, and what feelings are you experiencing? And I think you can imagine, like, you get a little part of that even when you're watching. I think I I had some revelations about that when I watched Sadibu now also in a couple of his fights. And it was quite real. I never watched MMA up close before, so then it became quite real. And I had some flashbacks almost from hockey when I played, from situations of combat. You know, it's not life or death. It's even less life or death when it comes to ice hockey. But like you said, the experience and what happens to the emotions, how the body is reacting, is probably quite similar as well. So, and I think everybody watching actually get this some part of that, and there's something very deeply connected to that, and also how you experience that and how you handle it. I mean, that's the whole thing. I think when we talked about that was actually exactly what you were saying. So maybe you want to elaborate on that as well. Where how do you deal with that emotion? How do you deal with that fear? And how do you go about that and still being focused on what you're actually supposed to do, right? Because if you're not, then that's when you get in trouble, right?
Yeah, I agree. Everything you said, I agree with it. And so the thing is, what people must remember is, how can I say, technology and all this, what do you call it? All these things we created has evolved rapidly. But the human body and the human, how can I say, species, we haven't changed for so we are the same human back then that we are right now. We get the same emotions, same body structure. We're like 99.9% the same people today that we were back then. And of course, so with that said, is so the sports might change. I mean, they were gladiators, we are MMA fighters or fighters, but the emotion is still there. The body is still the same. The people watching these fights feel the same like people watching the gladiators in Colosseum. So everything is the same. So you don't have to be a professor to make that conclusion, if you understand what I mean. So watching like you said, when you were watching Sadibu fighting, what you were feeling inside yourself, what you were experiencing, will be the same watching Sadibu as a gladiator before Christus. And
do you think people in general, I mean, when you view fighting, do you think that it could be like a disgust feeling, like you're watching you and you're beating somebody up. And if you only see it for the violence, then you could be very like, no, I'm a person that don't do that, so I don't really like that part of it. I think my question is it also possible, do you believe that's also possible for the individuals also to reject it because they actually are feeling these feelings, and they're not used to watching it? So it's almost like if you get revenge in your body and you're like, ooh, what is this? Like, it feels good, but I'm not supposed to feel like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And that has to do with the social stigma that fighting has over. I mean, the way our society look at fighting, and the way our society portrays fighting. And I think it has to do with that because, to be honest, we've been fighting for our survival. I mean, we are in the top of the food chain, and that's because we fought all the way up. So fighting as a, what do you call it? Fighting as a, how can I explain this? Fighting is within us. We've been fighting. We are created to fight. So that's every human walking on this earth has fighting built in them. You understand? Otherwise, there wouldn't be. It's like part of survival.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like a default mode, and now maybe in the protected world, you don't have to use it that often, but it's almost like sexual attraction or sexual pleasure.
Sexual loving. Exactly. Love someone.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a big part of us. To hate someone, it's also a big part of us. You know, to be able to do that, and it's all about survival. So with that said, is so fighting. It's within us, no matter if you want it or not. But we live in a society where you don't have to this sense within you. You understand? You don't have to fight your neighbor. You don't have to fight to get food. You don't have to fight to go through the day. But it's still in us because we haven't changed for all this, I don't know, million years. We're still who we were a few millions, 2 million years ago that we are today. But that's in us. So when we get exposed to it, something happens within us,
Yeah.
and it could be scary, especially when you look at, whoa, should I feel like this? Should I think like this? I mean, I got a story. My father-in-law, he's not a fighting fan, right? He hasn't fought once in his life, like not even in kindergarten, not even in like school, never fought, never been interested in fighting. And of course, me being in relationship with his daughter for so many years, he had no, how can I say, exposed to it. He just was like that. And he started to, and we have been spoken about it, and he told me like it's something strange gets to him when he watched me fighting, because I'm someone close to me, I'm someone he cares about, and when he watched me fight, something barbaric happens within him. He just wants the other guys to, he just wants me to crush the other guy, to, and he said that he he get feelings he never thought he could get. I mean, to actually uh, uh, wanting someone to hurt another person
Yeah.
really bad,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of it, I think,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, we are human and we have to accept what we are. We are animals just like other animals, even though even how sophisticated we might think of ourselves, we still are beast. I mean, the top beast of the world at the end of the day.
Do you
And
think?
it's sometimes it's good to be connected to who we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Guaranteed. So, do you think there's a value? Well, I believe, anyways. I think there's a value to this. That exactly like you're explaining. I mean, to be able to be able to not control your emotions, but feel them fully, and then understand them and see how you actually would work with them. So that's what you do. And as an athlete, I think all athletes have to learn to some extent how to do it. But I think in fighting is more profound. So yeah, do you believe there's a value for everybody to watch it in that way, preferably then if there's somebody that they know also, and be able to go through those emotions and understand what that is for themselves. That you might have the ability to help somebody else with that feeling. Do you think there's value in that?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And one thing I think when people watching something new, and particularly fighting, and maybe you're new, what do you call, observer of fighting, I think you should have in mind like to be open-minded about it, to understand that what I feel, what I feel right now, I might not feel tomorrow or later, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
So to not be like, oh, I feel like this about fighting and blah, 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 and that won't change. To be open-minded, like, okay, right now I'm gonna go and watch some fighting, and I want to be open-minded. I want to observe everyone around me and observe the game, and not have this what do you call it, prejudice glasses on me. And I think everyone should when experiencing something new, should take off these glasses and try to take in everything as it is. And the other thing is try to Socrates has one quote, which is know yourself. You know, try to understand that. Try to know yourself. You know, because these feelings comes. I mean, I will say feelings are pure feelings, which come from inside, are like as pure as it gets. And don't try to put them away. Try to work with them. Try to understand them, because they are you. Because you watching a Saribu fight versus another person watching Saribu fights, you might get different emotion, different feelings. Exactly.
Yeah.
And those feelings are portraying for you who you are.
Yeah.
With this, how can I speak? With this situation in front of you as a mirror. You understand?
Yeah.
So I will say that.
Yeah.
Like, you never know how you will.
I think
Yeah.
they will change. Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, the next question would be how you actually personally try to deal with that and what things are going on, like preparation or things you do, because it is a high intense situation, of course, and also what would be, if there's something there you think would be beneficial for anybody, you know, if you're an athlete or if you're just a regular person on the street, because I really think there's a power to understanding what you're feeling, like you're saying, and then prepare in a bunch of different ways, and understand that things might show up in different levels. So, yeah, do you have any? What do you do for you, for example, to start with?
The most beautiful thing is exploring. What do you call it? The beautiful thing a person can do is exploring oneself. That's the most beautiful thing, and that's for me the most interesting. I don't want to sound narcissistic, but the most interesting thing for me is myself and the exploration of myself. And I hope we come out the right way, because I don't want to sound like a narcissist. But yeah, with that said, is so everything coming to you. Okay, right now we're talking about me and my professional life, etc., with what I'm doing as an athlete, fighter, blah, blah. But I will say to everybody out there, like, take all this situation coming up, all this adversity coming to you, all this positivity, negativity coming to you. Take it as tools or as expedition on the mission to understand who you are, understand, and make it as a game, as a mission. You know, who am I? And ask yourself. I think one big thing is to come back to your question. One big thing I've had since I was, and I feel like has helped me a lot, and mostly has. How can I speak? When in Swedish it's called from mängden. Fått mig att sticka ut från mängden. Made me. Some kind, one of a kind, is the ability to ask yourself why in all situations. So when something good happens, why did it happen to me? When something bad happens, why did it happen to me? Or if I get some kind of feelings before the fight, I ask myself, why do I get it? I try to understand, why did I get this feeling? You know, and just asking yourself, I think, will help a lot of people. You know, ask yourself, because nothing comes from nothing. Everything comes from something. And it's up to you to try to understand what that something is. And when you had understand what the something is, that's when you get the control of that something. And with control comes,
So it's an exploration of origins to why a certain trigger or why certain emotions shows up at a certain time, right?
Yeah.
And an
Ask
external
yourself.
factor, and usually, I mean, this goes hand in hand. I think for everybody, not just when you're fighting, of course, but when you need something external to push you, maybe sometimes against, and for things to appear inside of you. And sometimes you don't know that. And it could be whatever it is, if it's relationships or sports or your job or whatever it is, right? So I really think that aspect here is, highly, highly valuable, and something that I think when people watch fighting, that they maybe don't appreciate as much. So you have extreme
Yeah.
situation. So this that helps, I would say. You have to understand yourself way better, because otherwise you will put yourself in a situation where it's going to be difficult. So
and I could be here. So why I'm trying to make this comparison with life and other things, because we could be here speaking about me fighting, but my profession, what I do is just extended limb. You understand? Just I could sleep tonight, wake up tomorrow, go sparring or make a fight, and it wouldn't change. You have to understand what I mean. So that's just something I do. But what's truly interesting is who I am and what I do on my everyday life, and my character, etc. How you could change your character, and what you should put in your character, etc. Because that's what makes sense. Because how I punch my left hand, or how powerful I am, or how quick I am, or how my technique in boxing are, I don't know. But for me, I find it not interesting at
but I
all.
think
If you understand
I
what I
think you
mean.
catch something here, and I think we talked about that before as well. That and correct me if I'm wrong. That you're seeing fighting and you're using fighting to a way to understand yourself and develop skills that are maybe extremely hard to develop in other places. I think there's very few people, fighters, maybe, but I think there's very few people that go to their job with that mindset. So I think it's highly valuable, and it's interesting to think about, no matter what field you're in. And I listened to Jim Rohn, which is a motivational speaker, I would say. From he was bigger before, 15, 20 years ago, maybe, than now. But one thing that he said is, it's not it's not the task that you're doing, so to speak. It's actually what you become when you're doing it. So the goal setting and everything you do is for that reason. And I know that you talked about that before, and I think that's a very interesting and I would say different idea to some ways. I think when I think about my career as well, I always had a sense that even though I was experiencing things and doing things in that space, I also felt that there was another reason that I was there, and I couldn't understand what that was at the time. And I always had the sense and the feeling that was going on. There's something else going on here. It's like a training preparing me for something else, which sounds, insane, but I had that feeling. And I mean, you're a lot younger than me, but when we talked about this before, you mentioned that quite early, that you see this as not just a way to go forward and move on, but more of like, what do I become when I do this?
Yeah, 100%. If we had to speak about boxing, the crowd listening to this will be this small. If we speak about sports and athletes, the crowd will be this small. But if we speak about general things, suddenly the crowd becomes this huge. So we could sit here and speak about, because I like watching boxing, and I'm pretty sure you like watching fighting as well, and you're an athlete as well. We could sit here and speak about the life of an athlete and all these kind of things. But suddenly we will speak to a crowd this small, and we will have we like, because you want to affect people in a good way, and we will have to affect people a crowd this small. Maybe if we speak about sports, a crowd this small. But now suddenly when we speak about life, generally we can affect a crowd this huge, but we are still athletes, right? And you had your career, I had got my career, but we could we could use our experience and our sports, our career, boxing, fighting, hockey, but speak to a crowd this huge. And I think when people ask me, so what you go with fighting, I will say that's the goal, you know, to reach where I can speak to a crowd this huge. And when I reach that level, then it's up to me to put out the goods out there, you know, things that will affect people in a good way.
Yes.
But because I get a lot of interviews where people want to speak about knockouts, how training's going, etc., etc. And of course, I understand who I am, what I do, and how people look at me, and what people maybe expect from me, you know. So I understand that most of the times they want to hear about my career and what I do, etc., how things going. But also, to be honest, for me, it feels like this is useless, you know, because that's not the. How could they use how my training's
I
going? You
agree.
know,
You're gonna have to do this for a very long time. Probably.
yeah,
Trust me, I still have a lot of time. That's why I want to have these talks so I can talk about other things. But that it's interesting to me. But there's
that's
a
why I
way.
love it, and that's why
I think there's a way
I
of
have to stop you, sorry,
how.
but that's why.
Yeah, go on.
That's why when I first met you, and you kind of inspired me, you know, because with what you're doing, you know, with both the Hale and Atunya and all these kind of things. And I remember the first time we spoke, we got into this spiritual level, spiritual talking and psychology around sports, etc. quite fast. And you inspired me because that's actually, I told my girlfriend, he's doing what I want to do with my career, you understand? So I feel like, so after my career, what's the next step? Yeah, that's something similar to this will be my next step. And that's also my Christmas present to you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And yeah, it said you're very aware of these things, although you know you haven't been in the game that long. And I think there's, like I said, you're gonna have a lot of questions about this for a long time. I sit there, like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. Then you're just playing along, and then you know people get happy. Eventually, you will have the time to speak about other things, and I feel the same way. I just hope that those things that I want to talk about also is useful for other people. But I think with the experience that I have, that they are. And then it's just a matter of, you know, getting, you know, the information out there. And sometimes, you know, sometimes you will have to give people. It's like when you go on tour. If you're Bruce Springsteen and you go on tour, not to talk about big ego, narcissistic, if I compare myself to him, but he's going to have to play some good old songs, you know, and then he can play the stuff from the new album or throw in some ideas or other things in that. Because otherwise, you know, otherwise you're going to lose your audience. So I'm quite sure that you're going to find the perfect mix of how to do that and bring value both to people that are in boxing, of course, but also, you know, other people over time. I'm not too worried about you. Not too worried at all.
But it's a good, I'm pretty sure it's a good thing to be worried about oneself. I think worry is, to be worried, it's some kind of försvarsmekanism, it's called in Swedish. Defense
mechanism.
mechanism, some kind of, when you're worried, you get things going.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's not a bad thing to get worried. But one thing is for example, a lot of times people, not only people, like my manager, trainer, ask me like, what do you think is your strongest abilities, and what's your weakest abilities? And when I'm giving an answer, I try to give a correct answer. I don't want to say my left hook is my weakness or my footwork is my weakness. So I try to understand what's my weakness, because I think you could train up to everything. You could train your left hook to be like the best left hook. You could train your right. It's all about time and how the intensity of your focus, basically, how much you can like focus on your left hook, and that's the key to how long it will take you to master your left hook. But so I get these questions a lot of time. What's your weakest? What's your strongest? And for example, for me, I understand my weakest part in boxing is maybe distraction. It's, I'm very easily distracted. And with that being said, is, for example, my trainer, he told me like, yeah, I think you when you're in a fight, sometimes you lose distraction, blah, 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 blah. And I'm trying to make you understand that's not only in boxing. That's the way I am in real life as well, you understand? But so people have to see sports and the profession like this, you understand? So it's just an extended limb of who you are in life, So what I get in boxing, I'm weak at in life too. What I'm strong at in boxing, I'm strong at in life too. Just the way I am. It's just extended. It's just like a mirror of yourself.
Yeah, that's I agree with that. And if you watch hockey players, it's very similar as well. You can almost predict. If I look back of all the people that I played with, and I watch their personality and how they played, it's very. It's quite spot on, I would say. So I agree with that. I don't know if it's the same. I think if you're in a regular job, you might put on a certain persona when you go to work. I think, of course, like your mental abilities and your personality is also going to pick the job that you're in, right? So you're not going to be in accounting if you're not a structured individual, I would say. And then on the creative side, you can be something else, right? So it will play into your personality quite a lot. But I agree with you. If you feel good, so a lot of the things I've been doing with holistic performance, and that's actually a good segue into the next question. But one thing that I've been doing a lot for a long time is this holistic performance and biohacking and all these things. And what I realized, and especially when it comes to the mind and the psyche and my experiences emotionally also, is that it affects everything I'm doing, right? And only talking about the left hook, it's not really going to do anything, because it was always too superficial for me. Do I need to get stronger or faster or shoot more or do this and skate backwards or whatever it was? And then when it comes to performance, a certain time when you need to apply all these things, the most interesting thing is it's like a transition where, you have all these, like all the money you have built up, all the credits you have built up, I think is a better word. And then you're going to transaction that in the game. And if you don't have a transaction company, it's like you need a bank in between or somebody that can do that. And that is this, the mental layer, so to speak. And if you can't do that, all those coins or whatever you have worked up together, they're going to be useless, right? And in this layer, a lot of things can affect you. If you break up with your girlfriend or somebody dies in your family, it doesn't matter how many things. It matters if you have practiced a lot of things and collected a lot of goals, because you can fall back on that to some ways. but your performance is going to be affected by other things as well, right? So it's very interesting, I think, for an athlete to understand like what this middle layer is and in this transaction and what's going on in this transaction, right? So my question now, that was a long question. Not wrong.
No, but I get it.
Question, but
I like
my
it.
question is how you view performance for you. I mean, this is kind of the theme for the for this for all of these talks, I would say, and I like to dig into that part, and maybe there's a way that you're viewing it. I mean, I think we touched upon it already, so maybe you're going to say the same things again. But is there a way that you can view performance for you that
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that is different, but that that brings value to you? Like, what is it actually to you?
I will start off by saying performance and training are two separate things. So what I'm about to say now, just for people who listen to this to don't get it twisted. So I see like performance and training like two different things. So you could train for something, but your performance will be another thing. You could perform some way, but your training was something else. Okay, so that's two different things. And in a perfect world, your training goes straight into your performance. That's a perfect pre-camp. That's a perfect training camp, fight camp before a fight. Training goes well, fight goes well, everything goes in a straight line. But you have to keep in mind these two different things. And next is performance for me, for example, is for example, I can take like a real life situation. So for my last fight, so I had like this bad, what do you call it? Bad thing about last fight. So I've lost 2 world championship finals with 1 point. I've lost some like national finals, like 2 national finals. And like one time I got problem with my stomach, I started vomiting and lost some weight before a final, went up fighting, lost by 1 point. And another time I broke my hand the day before, I had to fight with one hand, lost by 1 point. But for me, things doesn't happen. I see, how can I say? Shit happens because of shit, you know, shit happens because of a reason, for a reason. And especially when you see a pattern, like all the finals, all the last fight. So, and I had to do like, to really think about it. Why is these things happening with me? Why am I doing wrong? Could I try to do something else in the build up for the fight, as in the training? Could I do something, change my, the way I see the last fight, or could I do something? So that's something I've kept in mind. So I had my last fight for the year, which was so of course you try to level up. So the last fight usually the hardest fight. So I had my last fight 3 weeks ago, and everything was perfect before the fight. Everything was perfect. I went to the weigh-in. After waiting, I went to some good Brazilian restaurants, ate some things, and boom, suddenly I couldn't sleep that night. You understand? I couldn't sleep. And of course, this demons start to get up. Of course, it's the last fight. Something has to happen, like in all the other last fights. So I couldn't sleep, had a problem with my stomach, went to the pharmacy, had to buy, like, finish the whole half of the store, buying the half of the store with all the medicines just to get right before the fight. Nothing helps. Like 2 hours before the fight, I haven't slept. I maybe slept like 4 hours total. And the 2 hours before the fight, I start to go. So right now we get like 2 hours to the fight. Nothing will change physically.
Yeah.
You understand? We had like few hours, so nothing will change physically. Nothing will change. The situation will not change. I will fight, you know, because my opponent is there. So the situation won't change, physically won't change. The only place I could change is up in my mind, you know. It's up in here. I have to go through, why is this happening? And I have to go in a state of mind where it's like, it is what it is. How do I tackle this? How do I tackle myself with this? Because I tried everything physically with medicine, etc. It doesn't tackle, so I have to tackle this with inside. And boom, like 1 hour maybe before the fight, or 40 minutes before the fight, I feel nothing in my body. Everything is normal. I will go up and fight, do a great fight, came back victorious. But I'm trying to say, like, performance, that's performance for me. Understand? Because you have to perform no matter what. Training is another thing. Training might go super good, but you can't perform because something is wrong in your mind, or you're not in the right state of mind. Or you could train, it could go bad in training, but you're in the right state of mind. So you get the performance done. So that's performance for me. No matter what's happening, you need to perform. You need to tackle. You need to fight with your mind and control your mind and make your mind perform. That's performance for me.
Cool. Do you think? And I got so many more questions now, but I mean, this is maybe another topic too. We can discuss maybe off camera, but it would be interesting to see also, like you said, the things are repeating themselves, or you have something that is coming up before fights and even earlier too. And I know that I've heard, at least before, for athletes that you can get used to a lot of things that you have, because you get used to overcome things, right? So I mean, I played with one player that he was throwing up before every game, and he forced himself to throw up because he liked the feeling of, I don't know exactly what the feeling that he liked, but it was some feeling that he liked afterwards, whatever. It was empty in the body, or his mind felt empty, or it was some type of I don't know, I have no idea, but he had that anyways. And I know other players that they didn't like everything to be too perfect, so it was almost like they were setting themselves up for things not to be perfect so they can overcome,
Yeah, I understand.
And I don't know if that's true in your case. That's something we could discuss that later, but it's an interesting concept that you're preparing and everything is nice and smooth, and for some reason your body's starting to react to that, and it's almost like you're using that as a training or as a tool to move forward and be ready, right? You're creating the stress. It's almost like having a deadline, right? Somebody has a deadline in school or at their job, but they're not doing. I'm like this through a lot of things. I like when there's things like deadlines, because exactly, like some pressures, you create some type of stress or pressure, because then you're going to do it. And this is a very similar concept around this as well. So we can talk about this. You can think about that, but I think the concept that as a whole is is quite interesting.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
and it's really interesting. And it's one other thing which is interesting is we have a consciousness, but also a subconsciousness.
Yeah.
So sometimes, so I might think, but I don't want to, I don't want this situation to come up, but maybe something within myself take me to this situation. You understand? So you will never know. It feels like we need a whole nother hour and a whole nother time for this.
Yes, that'd be talk number 2. That'd be the next one. We'll put that in the next one. Yeah, awesome. What do I want to finish with? I mean, usually we start with background, but I think maybe we'll finish with the background today. And I will ask the question of, what have you, from the circumstances, you can shortly just tell people like where you're from, so to speak, and also what that has brought to the game for you. Like what's the biggest benefit with that adversity or whatever things that you've gone through in your life so far? Obviously being younger, growing up, coming to Sweden, all these things.
Yeah, so my name is Costas Nanga. I was born in Angola, Africa. Came to Europe through France and Switzerland, and to Sweden when I was around 6 years old. And yeah, I could tell. So, so to understand who I am and my drive is right quickly. I understood I get loved because what I do. If I perform well, if I do something well, that's when I was shown love. So this drive has this, I can say, the drive to be loved through performance has taken me where I am today.
Beautiful. Yeah,
Sure,
that's
right?
good. I think we're very similar in
And
that.
and of course, that's the gas, and the brake pedal should be, understanding that love and performance is two different separate way. But that is something I'm still exploring and still working with through my girlfriend and other
Beautiful.
family.
Maybe that will also be a topic for the next talk. Love and perform.
Perfect.
How to separate them or not? Yeah.
Yeah, it is special. It is special, and yeah, like you said, you are familiar to that as well, and it's easy for people to. I mean, for my girlfriend, she trying to make me understand that it's two separate things. But for me, who I am today and why I survived, so why I keep evolving from the mass I was put into. So I was put into this crowd, I came up to this crowd. And this crowd, I kept coming up, is because of this this desire, this drive I have in me to understand. For me, to get love, I had to perform, and everybody wants love, right? So I had to
The
perform.
ultimate
Yeah.
source of power. Yeah. All right. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing, taking your time. Have a good time in Sweden. Don't. Yeah, you jumping in the lake, doing some swimming or not?
Yeah, I will try to show you around. Wait, I don't know how this works. Yeah, right. We got a lake right outside here.
Oh.
So I'll try to take a swim to Finland.
Yeah,
In a few
that'll be far. Bring your passport. All right.
Yeah, but thank you, and I wish you a happy continuing, like we say in Swedish, and a happy New Year. And thanks for the talk. Always a pleasure, and thanks for staying behind me through this year, 2022, and I'm looking forward to 2023 with you, Johnny, and Atunya as a partner. Thanks for all the help.
It's a pleasure to be working with you. Fantastic individual. And when we hang up now, don't jump off here too soon because we need to download it. Otherwise, I get in trouble. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll see you on the back side of the studio in a minute. All right. Thank you.
Bye.